Following the announcement of reforms tailored to address common law lawyers' grudges, trickling reactions betray a certain degree of misgiving around the seemingly goodwill gesture by the government of Cameroon. And as students and teachers in the English-speaking Northwest and Southwest regions are deprived of the Easter break to enable them catch up lost time in the wake of the Anglophone crisis, the tough-talking Honorable Joseph Wirba of the Jakiri constituency in Bui Division is inviting Anglophone MPs to vacate Parliament as a means of showing solidarity with their brethren decrying Anglophone marginalization. This is Tough Talk, and kindly pardon our late start today. We'll be right back. While we wait to admit in a full house, Elie Smith is of the house and is here as usual. Elie, good morning.
Good morning, Divine.
Today is April 6. There was an April 6, 1984.
Exactly.
What comes to your mind?
What comes to my mind is the attempt to overthrow the new president. Then was new. That was just 2 years in power, if I'm not wrong.
Correct.
And so I think that's something which it wasn't a good thing, because it is not always good to use unorthodox means to overthrow a legitimate government. But now I think today people personally, there's a kind of regret that perhaps had that coup d'etat succeeded, Cameroon would have been where they are, where she is today. Okay.
So, well, the coup d'etat, you say, it draws memories of regret for you, does it?
Yes, for me, it draws some memories of regret, because first of all, there's a kind of ambiguity in which I am navigating into. One, as a person who is in support for democracy, I would not want a legitimate government to be overthrown.
Toppled by the barrel of the gun.
By the barrel of the gun. But on the other hand, sometimes when we look at the way Cameroon has become today, 34 years of BI regime, I tend to ask personally, that is not the point of others, but my personal view is that were those guys not good in attempting to shorten the lifespan of the regime? That's the question I'm asking myself.
Okay, so now some say, well, April 6, 1984 actually marked a turning point in the new president at the time, President Paul Biya's governance system.
Yes.
Some say he became more brutal, more ruthless in the way he handled his, well, potential and existing rivals at the time. Is that correct?
It's not correct. I think it is his innermost self that is revealing itself currently. Okay. Because if you read a book written by, there's a book called Dossier Noir, written by Elie, you see that he is opposed to those who think that it is because of April 6th that had to change the way Biya is reacting. He has always been somebody like that. Okay. Because it is the way he knows how to, he has this type of chameleon way of doing things. He knows how to hide his true colors or his true self, only to appear when he thinks that he has the necessary or the enabling environment is there. I don't think it's simply because of the coup d'etat that has made him to change. Okay. On the other hand, if he were a really good leader, when something happens like that, he would have sat down, carried out a kind of introspection to know what went wrong. Okay. And then I think, people who are claiming or floating that idea simply because they just want to try to embellish somebody who deserves no embellishment at all.
Okay, now let's move on to something else while we still await the barristers on the panel this morning. Let's talk about Rigobert Song. He actually took ill in October 2016. He was, well, airlifted to a hospital in France. He came back to the country on April 1, looking quite sound and good and regained, like he had regained his health already. And on Tuesday, news broke on the state-run Cameroon radio and television indicating that Rigobert Song, the emblematic former captain of Cameroon's Indomitable Lions, is being, well, there are plans to usher him to the Northwest and the Southwest, where he intends to say thank you to Anglophones for having prayed for him while he was on his sickbed.
Well, nobody refused.
Is this manipulation?
Pure manipulation. You don't need any kind of, well, you don't need to come from Eton or Stanford to understand that it is manipulation. And I think the Anglophones, like any other Cameroonian, will be happy to see Rigobert Song but it is not going to change the underlying reasons why the Anglophones are unhappy in this country.
Well, beyond, you said it was pure manipulation, but then shouldn't he go to Anglophone Cameroon? Because, I mean, he says, these people also prayed for me while I was ailing, so it's only natural that I go and tell them, thank you for what you did.
Good. Why didn't he go to Garua, Betua, and elsewhere?
Because people out there also prayed for him?
Exactly. Why should he choose to go to the northwest and southwest regions? I think it's pure manipulation. Then Song has no choice. The person who foot his bill is the government of Cameroon.
Government?
So the government of Cameroon always, the thing is that they are not ashamed, because if they had a kind of decency in them, they would not want to ask Song Bahanak to pay what they did for him.
But it's payback time. They foot your bills, and now they're asking you to play the political cat.
But Song Bahanak has rendered a lot of service to this country, in particular to this regime. When he was at the head of, as the Cameroonian captain of the Cameroon national team, under him they won 2 trophies. And it was enough. They used those victories for their publicity or PR stunts. So he has already done enough for Cameroon. And Cameroon is not going to be the first country that, if a national hero is sick or on the brink and the government comes out. Remember when Diego Armando Maradona was almost terminally ill? People came out in Buenos Aires and all over Argentina to pray for him. And when he came back, he never went around to make a tour. Well, he went on TV to thank the Argentine government and the Argentine people, but they never took him to send him maybe at Galapagos, not Galapagos, I don't know, the southern part of Argentina, I've forgotten the name, to thank those there because they prayed for him or whatever. I think it's pure manipulation, and is a government that is heartless, shameless, and always ready to use every opportunity to save her face in front of a crisis that she has woefully failed.
Thanks very much, Elie Smith, for your insights on this. Very powerful insights, I must say. And it's time for us, for the first time in a very, very long while, to welcome a lady on the panel. She's called Barristers Isabelle Fomokong. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
You actually meandered through Douala to get to the studio. Something's going on in town?
Yes, the streets have been blocked because of the installation of the SDO.
You need to speak a bit louder so our viewers...
The streets are actually blocked because of the installation of the SDO.
The SDO for the Vuri. There's a new SDO coming to town. He's coming to replace the former SDO Nasiri Paul Bia, who has been catapulted to the rank of governor of the Central Region. That's the heart of the nation. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to share your thoughts with us. We'll be back in a minute. So after initially appearing somehow nonchalant and snobbish, the government of Cameroon last March 30 kind of raised the flag of truce when it announced a battery of reforms aimed at, well, answering or responding to the grudges raised by common law lawyers when they began protesting in October 2016. Barrister, it's good that you're here. We are also expecting another barrister to join us on the panel very soon. But so finally, the government is listening and acting accordingly. Is that a safe conclusion to draw?
I don't think they're actually listening. I don't think that is a safe conclusion to draw, that the government is actually listening to what is happening to the Anglophone crisis.
Would you have expected more reforms to be announced?
Not actually expecting more, but the kind of reforms that they actually announced, I don't see it being real. For instance, the common law lawyers are talking about eradication of the common law. So what they're trying to do is to build up the common law as it used to be, or how it is in other countries practicing the common law. Well, the government actually exposed that, that idea that the law had actually been eradicated. because it is actually nice to hear that the Supreme Court hadn't a bench.
A common law.
A common law bench. It is also good to hear that the ENAM has not been training lawyers of common law expression.
Okay.
Then, when it goes down to say a law school will be open to train barristers, notary public, and UCs, it actually raised another eye, because I personally, I schooled in Nigeria, and I did the common law jurisdiction, or what?
Common law branch of
branch
law.
of law. Yes. Okay. It's so clear and simple. When the British people came to Nigeria, they saw the manpower not being enough. So what is applicable in England is you have barristers different from solicitors. But in Nigeria, where we're trained, a barrister is a solicitor. So they do both function. Okay, in Cameroon, when we came back, those in the Northwest and Southwest are barrister solicitor. And what they've been advocating for is to remain barrister solicitor up to today. Then the law, now the modification comes, or the amendment, the reforms they want to, they say they'll be trained as barrister or solicitor. Okay. Meaning they have to separate. You take one function.
What's the difference between barrister and solicitor for some like us who don't understand such jargons?
Okay. A barrister is a lawyer. He goes to court. Advocate.
Yes.
While a solicitor, he's one that drafts, notary publics, he signs documents. Okay. So while in Nigeria, if you can't make up your exam as a barrister, you'll be sent out as a solicitor, meaning you're not fit to be an advocate. Okay. So now in Cameroon, they want to train barristers and solicitors, meaning there are two individuals. Okay. And I don't think that's what the common law lawyers were actually asking for. Okay. Then the next part is UC. UC is actually foreign to the English part of the country. They are bailiffs. And who are bailiffs? Under the common law, bailiffs are policemen. They are not people trained, I mean, in the same...
executors of the law.
Yes, executors of the law, so they are policemen. Now, if you want to train the bailiffs with the lawyers, it means you're bringing them up to the position of being lawyers or advocates.
Okay. Now, you must agree, Elie Smith, and it's good that you're still here and that you have a free mind. You're not a lawyer. I'm not sure if you studied law in school. But the announcement, the imminent creation, we don't know when these things will be enacted, because they are not based on any time frames or timelines. But the mere announcement that there's going to be a common law chamber at the Supreme Court, that there's going to be the introduction of a common law section at the higher school or advanced school of administration and magistracy, that are going to introduce the teaching of English law in universities, state-owned or state-run universities. This should be good news. The government is demonstrating clear goodwill.
Well, I don't know if there's a kind of sarcasm from you. Well, but then on the other hand, we may say, okay, because look, these are the demands that the lawyers wanted. And they were beaten, humiliated simply for wanting that these type of things should exist. And then it also brings to the fore the clamor beyond those of the lawyer that Anglophones have always complained in this country that they have been marginalized. So do you imagine that you have to wait for 56 years for the Advanced School of Magistracy to have a section where common law is being taught? Can you also imagine that at the Supreme Court, you needed to wait this long for a bench, if I'm not wrong, for the common law to be created? It shows that this country, there is something going wrong in this country, and that the government now has been forced to swallow maybe their mistakes, but they don't want to admit it. And then I think it's also a good thing to have the English or whatever in state-owned universities. But there is a problem with that at the University of Boya. I'm not conversant with legal matters, and it's good that you are here. I find it strange. To me, it's kind of trying to francophonize the University of Boya when you have the faculties of something which
law
is
and political
science. In my little understanding of it, is I think those are two faculties. So why do you want to
do law and political science?
Why should you do it at the University of Boya? So the government is in her desire to fix what they have not been able to. they are now committing the same errors, and I think it's going to create another problem at the University of Boya, because the people of the University of Boya or the administration of the University of Boya will not want such to happen.
Okay, now it's good that you've been talking about timing, but the question remains, Barrister Fomokong. Some say this situation would not have come to this stage of decadence if such measures were taken 6 months ago. Imagine that these measures were announced about 6 months ago when the crisis was at the onset. It wouldn't have snowballed to this extent. That would have been appeasement enough at the early stages.
I don't think it could have been, because the government has just played a very smart one. Like the transition period for lawyers and notaire is what the government has been proposing, and they are rejecting. The problem of UC is it was imposed on them. They accepted it. It will not be like the government is trying to say what the Anglophone lawyers are asking for, I'm giving you people what you're asking for. No, the government is proposing what they want and trying to impose it on them.
But Minister Laurent Esso, and we're going to come to talk detailedly about his role in this crisis, he says that he was instructed by President Paul Biya to enact or announce these measures, and that these measures include some of the demands from the grudging Anglophone lawyers.
As I'll clearly say, if actually they wanted to talk with the lawyers or they want to appease the lawyers, let them go, bring the lawyers to the table and talk with them. I'm sure talking with the lawyers is dialogue. Okay. The president has been talking about dialoguing. Dialogue with them. Don't impose anything on them.
Okay. So, Elie,
yes.
I think before I come to you, because some say the decision is top-down, and she just mentioned it, the government did not consult the lawyers before announcing the measures. I mean, they sat somewhere and then is it top-down? Is there a problem that it comes unilaterally from the government? Why would the lawyers have contributed anyway? These are some of the issues they raised when they started striking or protesting.
No, the lawyers would have done something. I think that's what Madam is trying to say, because, for example, you have things like the UCA or the bailiffs. Had it been they sat at a negotiating table, the lawyers would have told them that we are of the common law extraction or expression. This is how it functions. Okay. And I think we are happy. I'm very happy to have a specialist, somebody who knows it on set currently. You said something like, for example, most often we say we inherited it from England, which is true. But in Nigeria, there's a kind of modification, you see, because in England, in African countries generally, because you adapt it to the local realities. And I think that's what the Anglophone lawyers wanted. But this unilateral imposition is simply because the government had her back on the wall, and I think it's just like part of taking song to go and thank Anglophones, but they wanted to create a kind of public relations tone by wanting to impose their ideas on the government of Cameroon, on the Anglophones, which I think is not a good thing.
Some say any demonstration of goodwill by the government, if the goodwill is goodwill enough, should have started with the release of the incarcerated colleagues of yours, Felix Agbor and the others. Their hearings resume at the Supreme Court, or rather at the military tribunal in Yaoundé on April the 27th. Would that have served as a goodwill starting point for the government gesture for you?
I believe that would be the starting point. That could have been a better starting point for them, because all what they're saying now is release our colleagues and then we go on the table. They're not asking them to impose on them what the government wants. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Thanks once again for coming. I want to announce that we have the eminent senior barrister Agbor, Achu, Emmanuel, Omar watching us right now in the studios with us. He's going to come on the panel very soon. But before then, I wanted to, usher you out, Elie Smith, with this question. The curious thing is that the reforms were actually proposed by those behind bars.
Yes, that's the absurdity with the government of Cameroon. Those behind bar propose something, and then you arrest them, you put them behind bar and try to implement what they wanted. And that's the problem, that if that's what I've been saying throughout the beginning of this crisis, you cannot take off stage those with whom you have to dialogue, and then you come out and now try to propose what they wanted. I think that is treachery, and it's part of this system, and I think that's the reason why I think the Anglophone lawyers are doing a very good job by resisting and having a common front until I understand that their demands will not be entirely met until a good chunk of it is, then I think it's going to be appropriate for them to find out a solution or a way out of the current crisis.
Okay.
I think top among it is that their colleagues are currently in detention. The government has to free them, and the reforms simply show that this country has a lot of problems. The foundation needs to be reformed in order for it to be stable.
Okay. Some have remarked that if the crisis snowballed to its current stage, it is largely due to the condescending and arrogant approach opted for by several government officials, including Minister Laurent Eso himself. You must agree with this.
No, it's not like I must agree with it. But if they have to look back, I believe the government has not actually recognized the present situation at hand. If you look back, there is a generation in Cameroon that is hanging.
What do you mean, a generation
There is
hanging?
a gap
Yes.
in Cameroon. People, let me say, people who were born between 1960 to 1975, they don't find themselves in the public service.
Okay.
Those are the people who actually went out of the country to seek for greener pastures.
All right.
They are all coming back. And what the government has been doing, it has been playing with people all around.
Yeah.
You can play with the very old ones, the very young ones, but you can't play with that middle class.
I don't know why you are almost dodging the question I asked you. The question is, do you consider Minister Laurent Eso arrogant?
That's where I want to learn that you can talk to the older generation, you can talk to the younger ones, but this middle class that was actually excluded, you don't talk to them anyhow. They are wounded. You need to be very calm, polite when talking to them. Try to reason with them. They are not, they are not idiots. They are educated.
Okay.
Yes.
They're frustrated because
And
they're absent from
Yes.
the governing machinery in the
That's
country.
it.
Welcome, Barrister, Senior Barrister Agbor, Achu, Emmanuel, Omar.
Thank you.
I must tell our viewers that you had to, squeeze yourself through tough traffic in Douala on a Thursday.
Yeah.
The bridge from Bonaberi, which links Bonaberi to Douala mainland, is jam-packed.
It is really, it's a Herculean task to go to that bridge this morning.
Thanks anyway for managing to make it here and be with us. The fact we've been discussing Laurent Eso and his role in the snowballing of the crisis, especially when it comes to lawyers and common law lawyers in particular. Some say the fact that he was handed the instructions by President Paul Biya to elaborate the reforms he announced on March the 30th is a clear indication of the fact that he is still in the good books of President Biya. Some thought he would be among the first to be knocked off if ever there were a cabinet shake-up.
Well, Mr. Biya is personally responsible for appointing who he pleases, and he may decide to keep, to maintain an ailing horse or maintain a horse that is still capable to win a race.
Okay. But do you think ejecting him from the government will be perceived as a goodwill by the government? Because
I think the problem should not be Laurent Eso. That entire government should pack out. They should get out. The entire government should get out. They have outlived their usefulness. It is not the first time we've seen the government do something and the president comes and says the contrary.
Okay. So let me take you back to, we were talking about this a couple of moments ago before you came in, Barrister. Going back to the heralded reforms, an English language proficiency test is due to be conducted to see the level of mastery of the English language by especially Francophone, in quotes, magistrates based in the English-speaking parts of Cameroon.
I beg your pardon?
And if their mastery of the English language is not, if it happens not to satisfy the demands of those carrying out the test, they will be redeployed to the Francophone parts of the country. And we talk of national integration and unity in that
I
case.
beg your pardon, the problem here is not a language problem. If you take a Francophone magistrate who is a continental law trained magistrate, and you send him to common law Anglophone a territory to go practice, there is a legal problem here. The person who you are sending to go and sit as a judge or a magistrate hasn't been prepared for that, does not have the know-how. He does not have the technicity to serve as a judge in that place. So it is not a matter of language.
Okay.
So they can carry out the proficiency test, but I think it would have been better for them to carry out a common law test.
No, common law, I mean the common law test would be for common law lawyers.
No, you want a magistrate to go sit in a common law court. He should stand the common law test so as to satisfy the public that he is going to be an impartial judge.
Now let me take you to task a bit. I already took Barrister Fomokong on that street a couple of minutes ago. How do you appreciate the reforms announced by the government, the creation of a common law chamber at the Supreme Court, the introduction of a common law section at INAM, and so on?
How do we appreciate something that ought to have been done in 1960 and that is being proposed today?
Of course, it's being proposed
How many years?
today.
Almost more than 50 years after independence. It is belated.
The good thing
It is long overdue. They ought to have done it long ago. And even now, they are still announcing. The parliament was just sitting. Why didn't they send it to parliament? They are still announcing. This announcement, what is it intended to be? A declaration of intention? A promise? Or what? Or a political venture? I think actions speak louder than words. It would have been better for this government to carry out, to bring out a decree or a law, since the rules governing the Supreme Court are defined by a law. They ought to have sent that thing to the parliament that was just sitting, and which elected their president and bureau members.
Okay.
Instead of that, they come and ask minister to make speech.
Barrister Isabelle Fomokong, if you don't mind, I'll take all of us to the machines and listen to Barrister Bob Guy Harmony, who's currently in exile. He actually escaped, fled from the country in the heat of the crisis. But here's what he said at the onset of what we're currently living through. Unfortunately, we cannot find the feed, but we'll probably be coming back to it once we get to it. Now, talking about runaway actors, Barrister Isabelle, one of them is, the very popular Joseph Wirba. You probably have heard of him.
Parliamentarian.
In a new letter he released at the weekend, he's actually calling on SDF MPs in Parliament to resign as a means of demonstrating solidarity with the Anglophone brethren decrying marginalization. Is that a far-fetched cry?
What I read, he was not only calling for the SDF, all the Anglophones.
All the Anglophone MPs
from
in
the
Parliament,
13
right?
divisions. But if actually they were there for the people and the people are no more behind them, then they are there strictly on theirs. I can't really say if he's calling for them to resign is something legal to be done, because at this point in time, we are talking about the Anglophone problem. We are not talking about setting another government. If he talked about the 1951 walked out from the Nigerian House of Assembly, by then there was no independence in Nigeria. They were still under the British rule, and there was still that struggle. So I can't really say if what he's calling for now, it's actually right for the people to do. The MPs can think about it themselves and take the decisions.
So after castigating SDF chairman Nijon Fundi in his other letter about a fortnight ago, Honorable Wirba says it's time for Anglophone parliamentarians, especially at the level of the National Assembly, to call it quits and support their brethren decrying marginalization. Well, it depends. Is that the way to go?
I think it depends on what we want. If we are thinking of Cameroon remaining one nation, then asking the MPs to resign will simply mean that they are no longer part of this setup.
Okay.
That's it. If we want to stay in Cameroon and have in one Cameroon, then it is out of question to say parliamentarians should resign. So I think my good brother is certainly thinking in the light of somebody who thinks that it is time to shift gear
and move on to the next stage of the crisis.
Next stage of the crisis, which may be creating a state. But the big question stands: do we want to create a new state?
Okay.
Or do we want to stay in one Cameroon?
Okay.
That question has to be addressed.
Well, let's leave it here a bit and move out of the studio to meet Annie Collins in Bamenda. If he's online, we'll get to talk to him. Annie Collins, good morning. Hello, Annie Collins. Hi, Annie. Oh, I can hear your voice, but it's too low. I mean, yes, Annie Collins. Oh, finally, God, thank God you are there. Good morning, Annie Collins. So, how is Bamenda this morning? Annie Collins, how is Bamenda this morning, please?
Yes, Bamenda is fine and okay.
All right.
The heavy downpour last night,
Mm-hmm.
and after the ghost town of yesterday.
The country Sunday.
No, the ghost town of Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
And today, just contemplating another one. It is said that the population is planning protesting against the end of the Senasco games that are scheduled for today. So Monday was to boycott the games launching, and today is for the closing of the games. But Tuesday, no one knows why that one was called in.
Okay, Colin. So how are the games unfolding? Really, are they pulling the crowds? Are the people coming to watch the games?
Right now, we'll barely get you here.
I'm asking Collins, are the crowds turning out for the games? I mean, that's a big event as far as the education system is concerned.
Yes, like I said, since Monday on international, that the public has been boycotting the games. Since the games began on Monday, the crowd was not there. But for the athletes, the over 1,500 athletes and the instructors who are accompanying them, they who have been coming out for the games.
Okay.
And I watched the semi-finals of the female football between the East and the Adamawa regions.
Yeah.
And I saw, if I could count well, about 10 people who turned up for the match. I think I'll have to exclude the organizers or the athletes of the games. So there are just about 10 people from the public who just hung around and to see what the games were looking like.
That's quite embarrassing, Annie Collins. Let me take you on to something else. The GCE catch-up classes, they actually started on Monday. Is that another point, source of embarrassment?
Well, I barely have their voice.
Annie Collins, I say let's talk about the GCE catch-up classes currently underway since the start of this week. Well, students and teachers are being deprived of the Easter break to enable them make up for time lost in the wake of the Anglophone crisis. What's the turnout there? Are students responding?
Barely a handful of students are seen from time to time moving to or from schools, but with no uniform. We have not. I don't know. People will soon lose the colors of the uniforms.
Why aren't they wearing uniforms, Collins? Are they scared? Why aren't they wearing uniforms? Are they scared?
Yes, they should be scared. Of course, they should be scared, given that threats continue. And you remember the other time I talked about the secondary school that was attacked here.
Right.
The teachers who were teaching and the students teaching are sent off.
Okay.
So that tells you how they should be frightened. So a few of them, you find them just meandering about as if they were going to market or just around, but maybe going to school. You just see them mount a bike and they are gone. So a few cases like that are seen around town.
Okay.
That if you have a good eye, then you read that this could be a student.
Thanks very much, Collins. We'll keep in touch with you and try and get back to you on Tuesday next week to find out. Yes. Yes, Collins?
Yes, just to say to that, the public has been wondering where this Northwest and Southwest got their athletes for the Finasco games. Do you remember we really spoke to some of the children, some of the athletes, and before they even answered our questions, that is informal discussions, they were cautioned by one of the instructors to make sure they remember the schools that they have been told to answer for. So that tells you that there has been some mercenary aspects in the games, and the National Anti-Corruption Graph, codenamed ONAT, says it has been here to talk about corruption. I don't know whether that too, they were blindfolded in that case. They happen not to have seen that cases that people came from, were hired from other regions to come and stand in the name of these two regions. So it is something like that. And some athletes too were disqualified for what you can say were out of the age bracket. They should not be more than 13, that the athletes were not supposed to be more than 13. So that tells you to the other aspects of the game.
Thanks, Collins. Thanks sincerely for sharing part of your time with us, and of course the very, very important information you're giving us fresh from Bamenda. That's the regional headquarters of Cameroon's English-speaking Northwest region. Now, Barrister, I'll take you on the GCE catch-up classes. Can 2 weeks make up for 5 months out of class?
My children are in the house. My children are in the house. Who is catching up? You have to look, first of all, you say you're organizing catch-up classes. The children who are supposed to catch up are not there. They should stop fooling people. My own children are in my house. I don't know who is supposed to be catching up. Ghosts?
So what syllabus are these children expected to be tested on, Barrister Isabelle? What syllabus? What have they studied? Why should they even be imposed the exams at this point in time?
I just believe for the Anglophones or those doing the English education, it should be actually a write-up for this year because I've not been to school.
Yes.
I know when we used to study for GCE, it wasn't like it's a Form 4 affair. You have to go up to Form 5 to actually have a clue of what you are actually reading of the syllabus. And then the way they drill you for the exam, they have not actually gone through that. They just forget about the Anglophones. The Francophones can have actually their make-up classes to sit for their own exams.
Now, Barrister, you say your children are at home.
Of course.
But across the Southwest region, for example, students have formed study groups. They're actually getting their motivation high up there. But some say at the end of of it all, who will respect the certificates that emanate from such exams?
Thank you. That's what we are still expecting to see. Anyway, the schools where my own children are, the authorities are calling on us to come and carry the children's property. So I don't understand.
Are they also promising to refund the money that you paid at school fees?
That's a different issue. I want my children to go to school. But the conditions in these areas, you see, with the militarization of the place, the insecurity created by these people who are supposed to protect the children, makes it impossible even for the school authorities to leave children there.
Okay.
And you see, this is very important. When they militarize those towns, we expect that these security forces will be capable of stopping people who want to cause disorder. But that is not the case. If that were the case, why was GHS Mutengede burnt?
All right.
Why? That's a clear example of the fact that the so-called security forces are unable to protect people and property. So they should tell us a different story. The government should be serious. They should tackle the problem and stop dodging and creating small pretenses.
Thanks once again, Barrister, very much for coming to share your thoughts with us. Well, sorry once again for starting late today, but we promise to make it up to you next week as from Tuesday and of course Thursday. One last thing, Barrister, before we glide out. Batone Nye Kamga Jackson, the Bar Council president, he's calling on Anglophone or common law lawyers to be a bit flexible. He thinks that your hard stance on this, your decision to be hard-nosed and not listen to any reforms is inflexible.
At what time?
He actually met with lawyers in Bamenda at the weekend.
To tell them to be flexible?
Yes.
You see, it's like we are just joking. People are serious. The Anglophones are serious. They want things to move. It's the government that is not serious. If not, you will not pack out of your, they have not been going to court for the past 5 months. How do they live? Because think about it, if these people are bent on reforms, give them the reforms.
Okay.
If not, I don't see where we're heading to.
I want to say that it is no longer a lawyer affair. Because lawyers may at this point in time say, we are going back to court. But they will not be able to go to court. They will be targeted by the other people whose problems have not been solved.
Finally, some say, I mean, the way out of this is the prosecution of those who actually brutalize the lawyers. They seize their wigs and robes and sprayed tear gas on them.
It's not only the prosecution of those fellows, those criminals. Those are criminals. The government itself admitted that they are criminals. They should be prosecuted. But the most important thing now, like this, you want any person to listen to you, release Agbor and all the people arrested.
Okay.
Start from there. Show good faith. Release them.
Right.
You cannot say that what they were clamoring for is correct, is right and correct, and then you keep them in jail.
Okay.
You cannot say that they were terrorists when you take one of them and make and appoint him.
A member of the
Thank you.
bilingualism and
You appoint one of them and call the rest terrorists. It's terrible.
Let me just say something. The Anglophone,
10 seconds, Barrister.
Yeah, the Anglophone crisis, is it only the teachers, the lawyers? It is the whole population because of the civil disobedience now. So you can't even solve the problem in this manner that they're solving.
Okay.
They have to go a little bit further than that and very fast because I don't see answers coming out of it right away.
Thanks once again for coming, sincerely. And can you tell our viewers that you'll be there next time we extend an invitation?
Well, I think I will be there next time they invite me, provided my liberty is guaranteed.
Thanks very much.
And I think I will speak more.
You can be sure your liberty is always going to be guaranteed when you come to Canal de English. Thanks once again, Barrister, for making it despite the hurdles across town this morning. It's on that note that we call it quits and once again accept our very fervent apologies for starting late and, of course, rushing over some of the pertinent issues we had in stock for you today. Catch you same time next week. Up next is The Papers with Gladys Agbor.
Changing the